Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? It is the question that emerges from deep inside. It comes from mounting fears, nagging doubts, and unsettling uncertainties. It is the question asked by one who can no longer pretend that things will work out nicely and neatly. All Christians face this question at some point, but few have the courage to give it a voice. It is John the Baptist's question to Jesus in the gospel reading this morning. Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? And the cause of this question is clear. Life is unfair, uneven, and unreasonable. The godly suffer and the wicked prosper, and there is no good explanation as to why. And you are familiar with this, right? You try to do good things, live a godly life, go to church, but then your neighbor next to you doesn't do any of those things, but his or her life is just blessed. John knew this well. He was the prophet, right? The forerunner, the voice sent to prepare the way of the Lord. His entire life was devoted to the coming of the Lord. And Jesus himself said that no one born of woman was greater than John. Yet there he was, sitting in prison, waiting for Jesus as they sharpened the sword. It is hard to say which would have been worse. That Jesus didn't seem to notice that he was in prison, or that Jesus noticed and didn't act. Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? The need to ask this question reveals something significant about God and about ourselves. And the significant thing about God is that God will not be domesticated. He does not play by our rules or take our orders. And the sooner we learn this lesson, the better it is for us. And a passage from Isaiah comes to mind, but not the one that Jesus used in the gospel reading this morning, but a different one. The one that says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Do we dare to ask, are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? We ask this question as we turn on the evening news and hear about natural disasters, local and national tragedies such as shootings. But how about our personal lives, our own struggles? We fear the future and the uncertainty of the tomorrow. Illnesses take over our lives, and division among families make this Christmas celebration somewhat unbearable. There is also fear of congregations declining, dividing, and sliding toward death. So we ask, are you the one to come, or should we look for another? Because nothing seems to be happening today, and my life is upside down, Lord. Are you the one to come? And I love Jesus' response. Instead of giving the disciples a yes or no answer, he shows them who he is. Jesus healed the sick, rebuked the evil spirits, gave sight to the blind, the lame walked, gave hearing to the deaf, raised the dead, and good news was proclaimed to the poor. Instead of Jesus sending John's messengers with a yes or no answer, response makes reference to Isaiah's promise and a description of his own recent activity. The point is clear. Jesus' actions, which fulfill the prophet's word, speak for themselves. Do you wonder if Jesus is the one? If Jesus is the one to come, or should we wait for another? See, my friends, he is the one that came and is still with us today. Now, I know we don't see him, but that doesn't mean that he is at work in our lives. He still performs healings and miracles, but now doctors take the credit, right? And he comes to us and his word proclaim and preach. His word produces in us faith to trust him above all else. His word also creates in us a new heart and purifies our hearts. And each Sunday, Jesus comes to us again and again through his body and blood. And sins are forgiven, lives are restored, and we are all reconciled with God. And for those who wonder if Jesus is really the one, the only and ultimate answer is his resurrection from the dead. You see, Jesus rising means our rising. It means that you will rise on the last day, that I will rise on the last day. And that gives us hope, that gives us strength, that helps us on the last day, that helps us each and every day of our lives, even in the darkest times of our lives. Because we can no longer fear death, right? Because we know that he holds us dearly close to his heart. His resurrection means that I will rise too, that you will rise too. Jesus said, "Blessed is the one who is not offended, scandalized by me." See, there are many reasons to be offended by God's way of doing things, right? There are many reasons to question why God doesn't seem to behave. It's hard to live with broken families, failing health, and loneliness. It is hard to accept abuse, neglect, addiction, and abandonment. And my friends, Jesus gets it. Oh yes, he does. And that is why he adds this phrase in his response to John. And in his response to all who asked John's question. He says, "Blessed is the one who is not offended by me. Blessed is the one who doesn't stumble when God's divine wisdom exceeds our meager understanding. Blessed is the one who doesn't try to tell God what to do, but instead receives what he graciously provides. Blessed is the one who acknowledges that Jesus is Lord even in difficult times, and that his reign is always good." And the epistle reading comes to mind, where the Apostle Paul commands us to rejoice in the Lord. And he says it again, "Rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." We are blessed, my friends. And this blessedness is the fruit of faith, which comes from hearing the promise of Jesus' resurrection and ours. And John's hope ultimately is found in Jesus' return and the resurrection of all flesh. And the same goes for ours. Our hope is ultimately found in Jesus' return. And that means that He rose from the dead, that you and I will rise too. And that is our peace, our comfort, as we prepare our hearts this Advent to receive our King, not just on Christmas, but as we wait for Him in His last coming. Amen.
Amen.